Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another video here. So I actually wanted to talk about this idea here. First of all, thank you to the mod Beanie on our Discord for actually suggesting the idea here. And there was an article actually written by Screen Rant, and it actually goes into the original idea or the alternate idea for The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon. And it's very, very different, and I can actually... I could see the thought process here, and I do think, the poor reception of like Tales of the Walking Dead and certain shows like that could have changed some of this. I'll explain why I think that in a second. I do think it's a good thing that The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon is where it is right now because the story seems to actually really matter. So I'll get into why I think that. So before we go any further, obviously make sure to be a subscriber if you want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. It is now September 1st, so Daryl Dixon does premiere this month. It's going to be premiering in 6 days if you're watching on AMC Plus, or in 9 days if you're watching on cable. I'm very, very excited. I can't wait for this show to premiere. I'm so hyped for this first episode, so definitely make sure to be a subscriber if you want to get all my reviews, all my trailer breakdowns, all the new information breakdowns. That's the thing too, there's going to be the Rick and Michonne show. Teasers for that as well are likely going to be dropping over the next like 2 or 3 months for sure. So there's going to be so much to talk about over the next little bit here. So again, definitely hit subscribe. So this article by Screen Rant here, the title says Daryl Dixon spinoffs alternate location and story explained by Walking Dead producer. And it's actually Greg Nicotero that talks about specifically what this show is going to be about and the location and all of that. And I'll get into the quote here in the article. Nicotero actually says here, it was going to be Daryl going across the country, like through New Mexico or the Midwest. And it was kind of like a Then Came Bronson or The Fugitive or Kung Fu, A Stranger in a Strange Land. In every episode, he would come in contact with people that would change his life, and he would change their life. And that was where this whole show stemmed from. It was something that Norman was super passionate about. And, looking at that idea, I can see how that could be exciting, in terms of, I guess, being an actor playing this character, because I feel like when you're an actor playing a character for so long, and not even really for so long, I guess when you're getting into a character, you really do start to, for sure over time, fall in love with the character, and you start to really want to see this character experience new different things, and just be in different places and having all of these newer experiences. And sort of, I think the idea, of Daryl Dixon just sort of wandering around in the woods and whatever, just kind of like encountering these different people, and then there's like all these unique different stories take place kind of thing. I can see how, there's a lot of creativity there. There's a lot of stuff that you can actually really do, but I do think overall as a story, just for the Walking Dead universe, it's not the most exciting, like it definitely, in that sense, you're sort of wanting Daryl to be involved in all these little like mini stories, right? And it's something that would feel a lot like the Twilight Zone in that sense, where obviously Twilight Zone's very different because it's very episodic. Each episode's different. They're not the same, right? But I'm just sort of giving the example of like Daryl would be the only thing that would be the same from episode to episode. But besides that, it would be newer characters kind of thing, right? And I feel like just in that sense, I don't know. To me, it's not the most exciting. And even if it wasn't necessarily fully that, and even if it was just like he met different characters and that was just it, Daryl was like in this whatever location, and then it was just, I don't know, it was a different story. I still think the change in scenery has definitely changed quite a bit. I do think the change in scenery has made things a lot more exciting for this show. The show being in France, there's just something about the overall tone and vibe of this show that is making it very, very exciting for people to watch. Like, I saw something posted online, actually, I believe at The Walking Dead World on Twitter, posted something where it was like, of the new shows premiering this month, September, Daryl Dixon was number 1 for the most anticipated. So, I do think, and again, when I watched that trailer, like, it was so weird because we got the trailer, or not really a trailer, but a little short teaser for Rick and Michonne, and it was really cool to see Rick again. Like, obviously, he's my favorite character, so to see him, I was so excited, but the trailer for Daryl Dixon was way better. And I got so much more excited for that. And that is just something that I think I can relate to, the location and what the story is. Like, the story here is very different than what we've really seen on The Walking Dead. It just feels overall very, very different. And I do think that this story does overall matter, I think, a lot more, specifically because of what the story actually is here. It is very, very interesting. If you're actually looking at the quote here, being in those locations, like for Daryl to be there, there's definitely a lot of people would discuss the fact that Daryl is very close to specific people, to people around Fear the Walking Dead. And that's the thing. I think if Daryl was in a location like that and this was the original idea for the show, then I do think people would be talking about the fact that, well, these characters from Fear can now be on the Daryl show, right? Like, I think that would be something that people would talk about, like, for sure. Besides that, in the next part of the article here, it does say, he would meet people and they would change his life and he would change their life. I think that aspect to it obviously is still kind of seen on this show because there is a lot of new characters here on the Daryl Dixon show. And I do think, these characters are going to be pretty, I think, important to Daryl. And I don't think are going to be characters. I mean, some of them might die here in season 1, but I do think some of the characters are probably going to be around for a while, and I wouldn't be surprised if Daryl eventually left France, came back to the Commonwealth, and some of these characters actually came back with him. Like, I could definitely see that happening for sure. And so I guess the whole show sort of came from this one idea here, and I'm definitely very happy that it ended up being where it ended up being, because I do think the overall plan before was just, I mean, it is crazy to think about. And I was actually supposed to do a video on this. I don't know if I did. Maybe I did do a video on this already, but I remember there being some discussion on what the original plan was for The Walking Dead. And that was supposed to be that The Walking Dead was supposed to last like 14, 15 seasons or something like that. And Daryl and Carol were going to leave and get their own spinoff. So I guess technically right now we would be going on to season 12 of The Walking Dead, maybe season 13 or something like that, 12, 13 around there. And we'd have still a few more years left of The Walking Dead with all the cast, obviously. And then Daryl and Carol would leave and then they would have their own spinoff. And then I guess Rick and Michonne would probably still have their spinoff. I don't think that would change too much. I'm actually happy overall that The Walking Dead did end and that we are doing this. Because I think The Walking Dead at that point, if Daryl and Carol leave, like, you would have just had Maggie and Negan there. And yeah, I know it sounds weird for me to say, like, well, that show wouldn't be as good. It's just the way people would view it. Like, people would view The Walking Dead as like, well, everyone's leaving the show, right? Because Dead City, yes, there's only 2 characters there. And if Maggie and Negan stayed on The Walking Dead and they became the leads with everyone else still there, like Aaron, Ezekiel, etc., like, technically people should be more excited because the cast is actually there. Like, the full cast of The Walking Dead is there. But people would view it differently, right? And there's just something more, again, I think just better about the fact that they ended The Walking Dead, the original show where the comic ended, and all of these newer stories, all of these stories where they're trying to make the world bigger and make the story bigger and all that is just like these spin-off ideas and whatever, right? Like, I think I don't know, I prefer it that way. And the reason why I was talking about Tales of the Walking Dead was the fact that, that show, if you're actually thinking about the story overall, like, no one likes those sort of boring like episodes. And there is something about, I don't know what it is. Like, when you look back to season 7, 8 around there, I feel like it's kind of Gimple's storytelling. I don't know. There's certain things there where I feel like there's a lot of interest in just like these very small stories and telling these really cool stories with these smaller characters and you know what I mean? Like, I feel like Gimple really likes that kind of stuff, and I think it worked really well for the first couple of seasons that he was the showrunner. But by season 7 and 8, it just became very, very, I don't know, because you go back to those seasons and sometimes they're okay to watch. You know what I mean? I mean, that's the thing. It's easier to binge it all now. But back then, waiting week to week and then having to wait to the summer for season 8 and then having to wait week to week and then having to wait till the next year, like, it just became so much. And then the cliffhangers that was brutal. Like, that was definitely a big complaint. And, so Tales of the Walking Dead for me, when you actually look at what the stories actually were, that kind of reminds me a little bit of what the Daryl Dixon show was supposed to be originally. Like, it kind of feels like it was the same thing. It's these stories that don't really overall matter, and I think people just want to watch stuff that matters right now because of where Rick Grimes is going and all of that. They want to see the worlds connect a little bit here. They want to see the characters reunite or there be some connection here. They want this like huge universe, right? And it's just what Marvel has sort of created, right? Marvel has done this to a lot of shows where now this is sort of the expectation. This is what people want. And if you're not going down that route, and imagine if they said right now, Rick and Daryl are never going to meet again. Daryl and Negan are never going to meet again. Their shows are separate. The characters are off on their own now. These are just completely separate. People are going to stop watching. There's already an aspect to it where it becomes really less interesting, right? At least for me personally, because I want to see them reunite. I want more Rick and Daryl, right? Like, I do want to see a lot more of this stuff here. So I'm overall very excited that the spinoffs are what they are, because the stories seem to actually matter overall to the universe. Like, there's a point to the stories, because I think if this show was originally what it was originally planned as, like with the, random stories or meeting all these strangers kind of thing, I think it would have done pretty poorly, to be honest. And I think making the stories matter, like that's the thing. The Daryl Dixon show being in France and what the story is there, it actually feels like there is a purpose to it. It feels like there's a reason for why he's there. Dead City, with the story going on there, it feels like there's a reason for it. Like, it actually does. I mean, that show, I will say, overall feels like it is a little bit more random, but by the end, they are creating something there that is kind of cool. So there's more excitement with the spinoffs. I'm very happy with where everything is at right now. I think if The Walking Dead went 14, 15 seasons, I think people would have been, I don't know, I don't think that would have been the best decision there. And I'm really excited overall with just sort of where we are with the Walking Dead universe. It's in the best place it could be. And I'm just very hyped. So I'm going to leave it here. Definitely post all your thoughts down below. Hope you guys all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.